The anime begins with our female protagonist Komi, who makes her way to school. Other students stare at her in awe, but we aren't given a full shot of her face. She's heading to Iten Private High School, which holds both fame and elite status, where fellow new student Hirohito Tadano resolves to blend in and avoid conflict. His motivation for this is obvious as he cringes in front of the shoe locker while remembering his embarrassingly edgy middle school face. Tadano is interrupted mid-crisis by Komi, whose locker is above his. Halfway through greeting her, Tadano looks up and we get our first proper look at Komi's face. She's pretty enough to send Tadano into panic mode. Komi is so startled by Tadano that she turns jerkily in his direction with wide eyes before leveling him with a stare cold enough to solve global warming. Tadano is trying to figure out whether he did something wrong when Komi flees the lockers altogether. Tadano heads to class, content to brush the whole incident aside. That is, until he sits down and realizes Komi is occupying the neighboring desk. Their classmates are already fawning over her beauty, and she's been crowned class princess. Unfortunately for Tadano, this means that he's drawing the ire of jealous classmates rather than fitting in. During class introductions, Komi stands for her turn and says, "Nothing." She begins to slowly advance towards the chalkboard before rushing up to write down her name with the energy of a swordsman slicing at his target. The class erupts into applause while Tadano is the picture of confusion. At the sound of the lunch bell, so many students stampede to Komi's desk that Tadano is knocked out cold in the process. As Tadano starts coming to, we can hear Komi whispering questions about why she finds it so hard to speak. He finally regains full consciousness in the otherwise empty classroom right as Komi meows to the cat plushie she's been whispering to. Tadano and Komi stare at each other in shock until Tadano declares that he didn't hear her, and she starts to run away. Tadano is worried that he has potentially scared Komi for life and tries to rectify the situation by asking if she's bad at talking to people. She only manages to stutter out a single syllable in reply. Tadano eventually suggests using the chalkboard to write down what she wants to say, and she wastes no time doing so. Komi asks Tadano how he knew she has trouble speaking, and he simply tells her it was an inference. Having no idea how to carry the conversation further, Tadano attempts to escape, but Komi grabs his blazer to stop him. Komi opens up to him via the chalkboard about the many anxieties that choke her voice, and Tadano realizes that she hasn't been staring at him with annoyance or anger, but rather insecurity. Komi also writes about her middle school experiences with being left out during lunchtime because of her inability to talk. Komi almost leaves, apologizing for oversharing, and giving Tadano an easy out. As she reaches the doorway, Tadano begins a new conversation on the chalkboard, and they fall into an easy conversation. Tadano eventually asks Komi if she has a dream, to which she replies that she wants to make 100 friends. Tadano declares that he'll be her first friend and will help her make the other 99. The next day, Tadano suggests they practice speaking out loud. Komi turns statue-like during her first attempt, but signals that she wants to try again. We almost end here as the music builds triumphantly when the narrator interrupts with some dire news. Iten Private High School admits students based on their personality, and the colorful array of individuals that walk the halls will definitely throw some curveballs at our protagonists. Even so, we see Komi bracing herself one more time before opening her mouth to speak. The next episode jumps right into Komi and Tadano's friend-making mission. Tadano is optimistic, his confidence stemming from Komi's popularity. Tadano approaches Yamai, the leader of a stylish group of girls, who gives him a charming smile. When Tadano tries to bring up Komi, Yamai grabs his shoulders and leans in to let loose a string of whispered insults based on her view that Komi is above him. Yamai releases Tadano, switching back into cutesy mode and dismissing him. Tadano's efforts with other classmates yield similarly devastating results. He mopes, coming to the belated realization that he also has no friends. Desperate times call for desperate measures, and Tadano seeks out Osana Najimi, his childhood friend. Tadano introduces Najimi to Komi before becoming puzzled by the fact that he knew Najimi as a boy in middle school. The gender-fluid and very cheeky, Najimi only relishes in Tadano's confusion. Najimi's communication skills are legendary, and they can befriend people within 2 minutes of meeting them. This is evidenced by the fact that every student at Iten Private High School is their childhood friend. Tadano asks Najimi for a favor, and they are more than willing to grant him one. Prompted by Tadano, Komi tries to ask Najimi to be friends, but she breaks into a stuttering fit. Tadano translates Komi's intentions to a panicking Najimi and calls in the favor. Najimi apologizes but says they can't be friends. Komi is petrified. Tadano beckons Najimi into the hallway, shocked by the rejection. Najimi recounts how Komi blanked their attempt to become friends in elementary school. Najimi was bedridden with shock for a week, and Komi has since held the title of the only person they couldn't befriend. Tadano explains Komi's communication barriers and asks Najimi to walk home with Komi. While Najimi is initially against the idea, they are swayed after observing Tadano's resolve to help Komi. After school, Komi and Najimi walk home together. It's an uncomfortable affair, with Najimi trying to maintain a completely one-sided conversation and buckling under the pressure. From Najimi's point of view, Komi is scary. However, Tadano, who has been discreetly following them, sees how nervous Komi is. Just as Najimi is about to give up entirely, two gangster-like students rush up to Najimi. They are Ma and Shi, more of Najimi's childhood friends. Ma has worked up the courage to ask Najimi out, but before he can even finish his sentence, Najimi rejects him on the basis that they're a boy. Ma isn't discouraged, and he rips off his jacket, which sends his key flying onto the street. He forcefully grabs Najimi's arm, saying he won't let go. Ma is drooling creepily when Komi grabs his shoulder to get his attention. Komi holds out his key and says one word, "Die." Ma's imagination goes wild. He pictures Komi as a killer who targets guys that mess with Najimi, and Komi's signature stare only solidifies his concerns. Ma and Shi take off. It turns out that Komi had only wanted to let Ma know that he dropped his key, but her broken syllables had come out sounding like "die" instead. The whole incident warms Najimi to Komi, and they decide to be friends with Komi in earnest. The next day at school, Najimi wants to eat lunch with Komi. Najimi also notices Tadano eating alone and ropes him into the group. Tadano is quietly pleased at this. Najimi unleashes a never-ending stream of questions at Komi until she goes into overdrive. Tadano interrupts by telling Najimi about their mission to make 100 friends. Najimi, with their outrageously large network of friends, is only stunned that the number is so little. Najimi sends Komi on an errand to Stanbakes and asks for an exceptionally complicated order. Najimi tells Komi that they can't be friends if Komi doesn't go, and Komi heads out immediately. Tadano is furious, but Najimi assures him that they did it for Komi's own sake. Though the laugh they're holding in doesn't convince Tadano. Najimi then sends Tadano to covertly follow Komi. Komi loiters outside Stanbakes before working up the courage to go inside. On her first try, she heads right back out. On her second, she gets to the counter and gestures vaguely. The barista points out the menu, but Komi doesn't notice the mix and match section needed for Najimi's order. The barista, overly confident in his own skills, infers Komi's order. He gets it totally wrong, but Komi takes it back to Najimi without complaint. Back at school, Komi gets teary, and Tadano and Najimi both try to shift the blame onto each other before dropping to the floor to apologize. Komi sulks as they continue to repent. In the school library, Agari Himiko, who gets nervous around people and feels paralyzed when they watch her. This is unfortunate since she's hyper-aware of Komi peeking at her from behind a bookshelf. Himiko, like most of her peers, has Komi placed on a pedestal so high that you need binoculars to see her. In comparison, Himiko thinks lowly of herself. To escape Komi's gaze, Himiko locks herself in a toilet stall. It works until she becomes aware of Komi standing right outside. Komi only wants to know if Himiko is alright, but Himiko is terrified. Himiko prays internally to Goddess Komi to be left alone while Komi leaves to avoid being impolite. Himiko cautiously exits the toilets and is stopped by their homeroom teacher, who wants her to tell the class that PE class will be in the gym. Himiko is nervous but agrees after she sees Komi again and wants to make a quick getaway. The request has Himiko's stomach in knots, and she tries to calm herself down with a serene pep talk as she nears the class. It doesn't work, and she can only manage to blurt out a single-syllable noise. The class starts to stare, and she backs away only to see Komi was scary enough to jolt her into blurting out the teacher's message. Himiko runs away but is glad that she was able to convey the message. Tadano sees Komi and wants to know what all that was about. Komi writes it down for him, and her explanation begins 20 minutes ago when Najimi compiled a list of students like Komi for her to befriend. The first was Himiko, and Komi was so moved by their similarities that she immediately headed straight for the library. Unfortunately, she still couldn't bring herself to actually approach Himiko. Komi and Tadano are contemplating her failed attempt when Himiko finds them to say that, while Komi scared her, the situation helped her change a little. Tadano tries to use the moment to suggest a friendship between Komi and Himiko, but Himiko is way too scared. Instead, she wants to be Komi's dog. The next day, Komi shows off her new mobile phone. She tells Tadano in writing that she wants to get her friends' numbers, and he misreads this attempt to get his number, getting up to find Najimi and Himiko. Komi wants to be more independent and stops him so that she can find Najimi herself. Komi gives Najimi a paper to write down their number. Najimi is confused about why Komi doesn't want them to simply type their number into the phone, but quickly catches on to what Tadano missed. Komi also tries to get Himiko's number, but Himiko interprets the situation through her masochistic desires and thinks Komi wants her picture for nefarious reasons. Suffice to say, Komi gives up fast. Komi offers Tadano her phone. Himiko, who has belatedly realized that Komi wanted her number, interrupts and tells them that Najimi told her about how Komi had wanted Tadano to put his number in first. Komi and Tadano start blushing furiously and can't even make eye contact as he gives her his number. Later during a class election, Komi is nominated for president almost instantaneously. Najimi tries to rescue her by convincing everyone that Komi is too good for the position, and she ends up with the title of goddess instead. Tadano becomes president without having any say in the matter, and Najimi takes vice president. That night, Komi is at home playing around on her phone when she accidentally dials Tadano. She cuts the call right as he says hello. He calls her back, having already guessed it was accidental, and tells her to make a noise if everything is okay. To his surprise, Komi speaks, albeit unsteadily. In fact, she even tries her hand at making a joke before apologizing for the accidental call. They end the call shortly after, and Tadano exclaims about the loveliness of Komi's voice while she celebrates her first call. The next day at school, the popular group plays a clapping game. Komi wants to try, and Tadano comes up with a plan to do so after school. Najimi, who is with the popular group in question, overhears and calls Komi over to push her out of her comfort zone. The popular kids worship her. Tadano joins to make sure Komi is okay. They hate him behind fake smiles. Najimi changes the game to a simpler one and Komi wins thanks to the popular kids sucking up to her. The game changes again and Najimi introduces a penalty for the loser. They must make a kissy face. Komi's worshippers are completely ecstatic and play the game with the fierce determination to make Komi lose. To save her, Tadano messes up his turn on purpose and sinks into complete and utter embarrassment. Tadano remains a wreck, although he feels better when Komi thanks him for helping her have fun. During a physical exam, unbeknown to Komi, fellow student, Yedhino Mikuru has turned the whole thing into a one-sided competition. Mikuru is determined to beat Komi in 3 out of 4 of the physical exam components. Mikuru only manages to win in 2 components, leaving them tied. She despairs until she recovers with the knowledge that ideal body measurements are completely arbitrary. The next day, Tadano is enjoying a pleasant walk to school when a dark presence creeps up behind him and pounces. Before we can learn his fate, we cut to Yamai, also on her way to school. She's currently preoccupied with what she calls a small crush on Komi, except as she borderline stalks Komi through school, it becomes obvious that it's more like a whirlwind obsession. Yamai resolves to become Komi's friend, but her attempts to talk to Komi are unintentionally thwarted by Himiko and Najimi saying good morning. Yamai uses her friendship with Najimi as an opening to say good morning to Komi. Of course, when she does, Komi is unable to reply. This only feeds Yamai's infatuation, as it reinforces her view of Komi as an unreachable goddess. After leading Najimi into a dark corridor, Yamai uses a threat thinly veiled as a favor between friends to get them to introduce her to Komi. In the classroom, Najimi follows through with the introduction, but Komi doesn't say a word to Yamai. Yamai is already too far down the rabbit hole, preoccupied with how much she wants to touch Komi. Yamai takes a seat at Tadano's empty desk and invites Komi to share her bento for lunch later. Komi imagines Tadano cheering her on, and nods. Yamai is flustered and the moment is almost tender. That is, until Yamai starts aggressively whooping with victory. We finally see Tadano again and his situation is dire. He's tied up, mouth taped shut, in Yamai's bedroom. There are pictures of Komi pinned all over the walls and ceiling alongside pictures of Yamai. The time flashes across the screen and it's already 10:48 a.m. About 3 hours later, lunch break has just finished at school. Najimi invites herself and Komi over to Yamai's house after school. The time flashes again and it's now 4:36 p.m. In Yamai's room, Tadano is losing hope when he hears Yamai come home. She tells Komi and Najimi to wait while she comes into her room alone to take down the pictures and shove Tadano in the closet with the promise to bury him in the mountains. Tadano hears Najimi's voice and bangs against the closet door. Yamai brushes it off as her noisy neighbor and goes to get tea after warning a concerned Komi and Najimi not to open the closet. Najimi has other plans, opening the closet as soon as Yamai is out of sight to find Tadano. At that moment, Yamai returns with a sharp pair of chopsticks. She assures Komi that there's nothing to worry about and that her actions were necessary to get Tadano out of the picture. Yamai assassinates Tadano's character before showering Komi in compliments, trying to get Komi to agree that Tadano isn't good enough to beat her friend. Komi shakes her head with a sigh in reply, and she and Najimi anti Tadano. She uses her notebook to tell Yamai that her actions are disturbing. The trio tries to leave, but Yamai jumps into Komi's path, saying that she did it all for Komi's sake. Komi writes that she'll decide who her friends are and walks out with Tadano following closely behind. Stunned, Yamai mistakes the notebook usage as a sign that Komi hates her enough that she won't speak to her. As she breaks down, we see Najimi flattened against the wall, internally screaming for Tadano after getting left behind. The following day, Komi uses her notebook to express that she feels responsible for Tadano's abduction. She isn't sure whether they should stay friends in case something worse happens. Tadano, echoing her earlier sentiment, says that he'll decide who his friends are. While Tadano cringes over using Komi's own words back at her, Komi writes that she's sorry. When he asks why, she speaks to him in person for the first time, saying that she also wants to stay friends. Najimi finds them, bringing Yamai over to apologize. While it's a backhanded apology at best, she does admit to being selfish. Komi accepts the apology using her notebook, and Yamai is gutted, misinterpreting it as more intentional silence. Eventually, though Yamai is hesitant to believe Komi is anything less than perfect at first, they manage to explain Komi's communication disorder to Yamai. After hearing about Komi's plan to make 100 friends, Yamai obviously wants to be one of them. Komi is hesitant but then writes Yamai a note marking the start of their friendship. Yamai threatens to bury Tadano alive if he touches Komi, and it's clear her obsession isn't going anywhere anytime soon. In the first day of summer, which means summer uniforms all around, Komi's summer uniform earns her even more attention from her classmates. There's a fitness test at school, and Mikuru has turned it into the opportunity to compete against an oblivious Komi yet again. She loses every single round. Nevertheless, Komi impresses her during a sprint test, and Mikuru's one-sided rivalry takes on an admiring quality. That afternoon, Najimi and Tadano visit Komi's home. Upon arrival, they are greeted enthusiastically by Komi's mother, who is excited that Komi has finally brought friends home. She introduces herself as an eternal 17-year-old at heart. Tadano and Najimi have no idea how to process this information, and Komi is mortified. Komi shows Tadano and Najimi to her room. The three of them fall into complete silence until the awkward tension is broken by Komi's mother delivering afternoon tea. Najimi decides to try and stir up trouble, pretending to need the bathroom so they can observe Tadano and Komi when left alone together in Komi's room. Much to Najimi's dismay, 15 minutes pass between Tadano and Komi in comfortable silence until Najimi can't stand it any longer. Tadano and Najimi end up staying well into the evening, though Komi is still disappointed when they leave. She laments until receiving a message from Najimi with the secret photo they took to commemorate the afternoon. After school the next day, Komi wants to go to a ramen shop. Himiko overhears and displays the extreme confidence she gains when discussing food. She leads Komi, Najimi, and Tadano to her preferred ramen shop. While the excursion has some ups and downs, they make it a habit. During break time on another school day, Komi is approached by Nakinaka Omoharu, who addresses her as Princess Camellia and sprouts nonsensical tales about reincarnation and making a blood contract. Komi wants to know more about Omoharu's fantastical claims and asks her to explain them. Having to do so makes Omoharu more than a little shy, so she dodges the question by asking Komi to make a blood contract again. When Komi doesn't say anything, she takes off with a wild imaginary excuse. Tadano guesses that the blood contract was Omoharu's way of asking to be friends, while Najimi laughs over Omoharu being a Chudabu, saying it reminds them of Tadano in middle school. We flash back to Tadano in his second year of middle school, and he parades around with an inflated sense of self-importance. He enlists Najimi to help him confess to the cutest girl in his class by writing love in huge letters across the school's oval. Najimi watches from the bushes as the girl proceeds to reject Tadano for being a Chudabu. His self-esteem is completely crushed, and he decides right then and there to live a normal life, transforming into the Tadano we know today. In the present, it's time for PE class. Everyone wants to be Komi's partner while Omoharu is left all alone. She uses her delusions to fake indifference, but secretly despairs until Komi offers to be her partner. Once they complete their partner stretches, Omoharu wants to thank Komi. She can't find the words to properly express herself, so she transitions back into Chudabu mode. After school, Najimi steals Tadano's umbrella, leaving behind a cheeky note. Komi shares her own with him and they walk home together. When they make a convenience store pit stop, Tadano asks if Komi saw Najimi's note and waited for him. She blushes, not denying it. We see Komi continues to try to improve her communication techniques by writing down jokes for Tadano to read. Unfortunately, they're all outdated dad jokes that don't earn her any laughs. Najimi invites Tadano, Komi, and Himiko to go out and buy clothes after school. Yamai spies on their conversation and pretends to bump into them at the mall, asking Komi what type of clothes she likes. Komi, whose mother buys all her clothes, doesn't know. Najimi uses this as an opportunity to start a game. Each person must choose an outfit within a 10,000 yen limit for Komi to try. Whichever outfit gets the highest score from the group wins. Tadano isn't confident in his pick of a simple white dress, but everyone loves it. Komi buys it after it gets full scores across the board. Later, Komi decides to get a haircut at her usual salon where newbie assistant Arai Kimiko is determined to do a good job. Kimiko welcomes Komi in, but Komi is too nervous to reply or enter the salon until veteran hairdresser Karis Maki recognizes Komi and invites her in. Maki deduces that Komi wants her usual haircut without having to ask. As she gets to work, Kimiko notices that Komi has fallen asleep. Maki reveals that Komi pretends to sleep so that she doesn't have to talk. Komi, while embarrassed, doesn't give up the act. Kimiko takes over for the shampoo process and tries to start a conversation with Komi. Komi points to words on magazines to answer, making Kimiko worry about her customer service skills. While paying, Komi uses a magazine to thank Kimiko. After she leaves, Kimiko worries that Komi dislikes her, but Maki explains that salons can feel intimidating. Tadano is the only one who notices Komi's trimmed hair the next day. That night, Komi lies awake in bed and overthinks all her interactions with people until she thinks of Tadano and finally falls asleep. Exam season rolls around at school. Najimi suggests a group library session with Komi and Tadano, though Tadano suspects they have no intention of actually studying. The library is overlooked by senior student Garimi, who whacks anyone being too loud with a giant paper fan. 3 whacks and you have to leave. Najimi almost immediately gets their first whack. Komi and Tadano settle into studying. Najimi gives up quickly, finding a book to read instead. They can't control their laughter and Garimi whacks them again. This doesn't deter them, and they pull out a Jenga set. Komi joins the game without hesitation, but Tadano is wary of Garimi's hawk-like gaze. He doesn't want to let Komi down and prods a block when Najimi accidentally topples the tower. Garimi gives each of them a whack and carries Najimi away. Komi is glad to have had the experience of getting in trouble. Exams come and go. All Komi's marks are in the 90 range and Najimi does well despite their aversion to studying. Tadano's marks line up exactly with the class average. And just like that, it's time for summer vacation. Komi and Tadano both finish their summer homework early and each wants to invite the other to hang out. After much hesitation, Komi is the first to call, but Tadano is so startled that he doesn't pick up. Eventually, Najimi invites them both to the pool and the problem is solved. But that's where this video ends, and let me know in the comment if you want the next part of this anime.